Welcome to Annunciation Radio's Faith with Reasons, the program that examines what the church teaches and why. Faith with Reasons.
Well, welcome aboard. Thank you so much for joining us on Faith with Reasons. I'm Ron Finn, along with Shane Stanfield. How you doing, Shane?
I'm doing wonderful. How about yourself?
Pretty good, pretty good. And, of course, we're still in the grip of summer, and which we can't really complain about because
although today's
summer is behaving like summer behaves.
Different. We actually have somewhat of a cool breeze. It's not like sticking your head in an oven.
Well, don't get used to it. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think summer's going to last until the abrupt end, whenever that happens.
Yes, until it ceases to be hot.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
We won't know. We used to be able to depend on the calendar, but now we really can't.
No, it doesn't work that way. Yeah.
So what's new in your life?
Well, I'm sure our listeners aren't unaware, but since the last time we spoke, I am newly employed as a pastoral associate at St. Joan of Arc Parish, so I've come out of retirement. I've crawled out of my cage.
Just when I think I got out, they dragged me back in.
No, I was, I left the whole, typical career, corporate life and all of that. And I wanted to get into ministry, and this is like right up my alley. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
What a blessing for the parish.
I hope that's the case.
I have no doubt.
I haven't messed up anything yet that I'm aware. So, only time will tell, but the most exciting thing is, of course, as our audience knows, I'm a convert, pretty radical conversion in 2012. Mm-hmm. And so my primary responsibility is OCIA, which is the program that's responsible to bring people into the church.
Yeah, the Order of Christian Initiation.
Yes, yeah. So I'm really, really, really pumped about that. That's very exciting. Just to walk with people, that traditional faith journey. One, they're getting, they feel that they want to become Catholic, but helping them grow in that is going to be a really, really cool thing. And to watch it from, throughout that whole process, I'm excited about it.
Yeah, you're right. That is right up your alley. And what a great blessing for the parish to be able to have someone like you in that position.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds perfect.
Yeah. I hope so. So, well, time will tell. I think class is scheduled to begin mid-September. So if anybody wants to become Catholic and you're in the St. Joan of Arc area, or anybody that wants to become Catholic, contact me through the parish offices, and we'll get them on board. Very
good. And that's a very busy parish. There's a lot going on there.
Classes are forming. So
classes are forming now. Yeah, September's coming up before you know it.
Yeah. So it's going to be a busy time of the year. Of course, school is just starting on I think next week for most schools, including our own. Mm-hmm. We're going to be starting midweek. So yeah. And also looking at families that we have, we got over a quarter of our students are coming from non-Catholic families, and that is going to be a trend that's going to continue to increase for the foreseeable future because, of course, we have the money now is following.
That's right. The choice
Ed choice.
Even, some federal regulations that I think I just kind of read in 2027 might become available for everybody.
Yeah. So it's making Catholic schools more affordable for parents that couldn't. We're having difficulty finding the ability to put their kids through. They wanted a better education, and now that's a possibility. And hopefully, with more support from state and federal resources, it might be a thing where even some of our Catholic schools can reopen. Some of them have been closed, or we can get the existing schools to expand. And again, it's offering an opportunity for people that are not Catholic to consider becoming Catholic, because there's something to be said about Catholic education, and there's got to be something behind the Catholic faith for that education and the thought of that education that's been going on for a long time. Mm-hmm. So
absolutely. So contact St. Joan of Arc if you're in that area.
Yeah.
Get involved.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. We're very excited to have Matt Archbold with us on this edition of Morning Offering. I was looking through the list of previous guests, and it's been since April since we've had him on.
It's been a long time.
What is wrong with us?
I don't know. Our ratings, it's all on ratings now, so I think our ratings go up every time we have Matt, so we should definitely have him on more often.
Right. We think up the ratings in our heads, and it seems like we take a big bounce when he's on.
I think, it's something like that, yeah.
Like that. But Matt Archbold, of course, a Catholic father and a blogger and an author and the creator of Creative Minority Report on the website. So check all that out. We find out what's on Matt Archbold's mind each Thursday morning. Here on the Morning Offering here on Annunciation Radio. And we thought we'd get the jump on that. It's interesting. I'm scooping my own show because we're gonna plumb the depths of his mind today, and then I don't know if there's anything left for tomorrow, but we'll see.
We'll see. We'll see.
Matt Archbold, welcome. Thank you for being on.
Thank you so much for having me. You say you were asking yourself, well, what is wrong with us? I ask that question every Thursday after I hang up the phone.
Yeah, I don't blame you. True. Yeah, we say something or ask you something, and you're thinking, you give a great answer, but in the back of your mind, you're thinking, where did that come from? Oh, now I want to remind people about your books, and I don't know if you've got anything in the pipeline right now, but you've got two that they're still available, right? Both.
American Antigone and Faith Under Fire. Faith Under Fire is nonfiction. American Antigone is a pro-life fiction story.
Mm-hmm. And I wanted to remind people about American Antigone, especially because this is a good time. We're going to have October, the month for life, and we're going to have some marches going on, and we're going to have a lot of attention. Even in the news now, there's a lot to be kind of rejoicing in the pro-life world with things that are taking place right now. So, and that is a great book because, it's a novel, but it could be torn from today's headlines. You know what I mean? I mean, it seems so realistic. You can actually see those events taking place.
It sounds funny, but I truly felt called to write it, and it was something that I'm very proud of. And I know they say that you can't take things with you when you go to heaven, but I'd like to have a copy and say, like, this is what I did when I was down there, and then maybe I could point to 3 or 5 of my kids and say, those 3 too. I worked hard on those. The other 2. I was having an off day,
right. And I'm still waiting for the sequel, the volume 2 of Faith Under Fire, stories of Christian courage. You've got some wonderful profiles in that book, and there are more people to profile, especially now, right?
Holy moly! That poor woman who keeps getting caught in England for praying silently.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being arrested for praying silently? Yeah, but she was arrested recently again for praying silently.
Again, really?
Yep. England is, man, it just is not what it was, huh?
And she's not a young woman. I mean, she's old, right?
Right. Oh, yeah. But, every time I see her, I think my mom is out praying in front of an abortion clinic where she lives. She's 90 years old. She does it every Monday. And I can't help but think of her. And, it's scary because I always think of England as, just a few years ahead of where we are. I think recently we've kind of put the brakes on it, and maybe we're having a moment to reconsider. But, for a long time we've been barreling down this road towards subjectivity and secularism, and I really hope we're able to stop it before we get that far. But let's be honest, we were rolling towards that. Remember that pro-life guy, Mark Houck?
Yes, yes.
He was arrested. They did the full-on SWAT. Even though he left for work every day, and he was out and about, instead, he had a bunch of kids at home, and they did the full-on SWAT raid. And as you know, kids are unpredictable, when they're scared.
Sure.
And that could have gone a different way. It could have gone ugly, and just to think of the cavalier way in which they dealt with life, also they could have headlines. It's really disturbing, and it's just unchristian is what it is. And that's the thing, that when we see how cavalierly they they see life. That's really disturbing. And I am truly glad that we do seem to be waking up from this. I'm hoping that this is not one of those things like my daughter does, where she kind of wakes up and then she rolls over and goes back to sleep.
Yeah.
But shows like this are exactly what we need to make sure that we don't roll over and go back to sleep, because the world is really on the precipice of eradicating religious liberty, and we have to wake up to it.
Yeah, and it's a shame that the pendulum has to swing so far that people can finally wake up and go, wow, how did we get here? Well, we've been getting there for quite some time now, and then you're part of the problem, or we're part of the problem. So we have a responsibility each and every day to point these things out, and it makes sense, because some of this stuff is just so crazy. It's like, how do people think like that? How do we get to that place?
You see these things going on, and it's easy to point, and I'll admit I do this all the time. I'm a big fan of pointing and laughing at the things people do, like that kid on the Simpsons, that kid. But at some point with the culture, at some point we have to point to ourselves and ask, what are we not doing? Are we not standing up strong enough? And it's just, we have to do more. We obviously have to do more, and, a lot of times we do wonder, what could I do? But, we have to do more. And whether it's praying more, whether it's going to mass more often, or whether it's making a stand like, my mother in front of an abortion clinic does every Monday, or silently praying outside, just making more of a stand, making it known that I am a Christian, and letting the world know, instead of, whispering it to one another. We have to be loud and proud.
And getting more people, aware that, if they can drive by, a facility and see people standing out there silently praying, it's something to see this being done in action. I think it resonates with people, maybe calls attention to where, they may not be really thinking about that, or, may not even be aware, because some of these buildings are disguised. They don't have the flashy neon sign, kill your baby here. It's they're
100%. Right.
They're very, very undercover about this. But what's with this? There's a cluster of people on the other side, and they look like they're obviously praying, and just bringing that to mind, I think is this shift that we need in culture, and it definitely needs to be shifted. We can't rely on these elections. We have to have people not, in the middle of the road. We have to have people making, very, very concrete decisions, and be able to stand up, with a faith-based reason as to why we choose to elect certain people that support, certain things, because it really does matter. And even though we may not be talking about, it seems to me, abortion directly, we have so many other things that gets funneled into that industry. I mean, we see this cleanup that they did, and I kind of want your opinion on that. This whole Doge thing that you go through, and they're cleaning up all of this funneling of money. And it's amazing, because a lot of that went out of this country, but a lot of it stayed within this country, and it was support. Money laundering was supporting a lot of these large NGOs that were pumping money right back into the abortion pill industry, the eugenics, all the stuff that they're doing now in this country.
Well, I can tell you, and it's just I was right after I was done as a reporter, I helped run a few campaigns around, and what I heard. And I think it was only a few years, and it wasn't. And I was always with the kids. So I imagine that, the guy trying to run campaigns while towing. At that point it was 4 kids around to all the meetings. It was a mess. But I truly felt moved enough to do it. But getting an insight into that world where you see, so taxpayer money comes in, and then it goes out to these organizations. And a lot of these organizations are doing things that no one knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
They just put some, benevolent sounding name, on their organization. The money goes in, and then what they turn around and do is they'll take 10% of that and they'll donate it back to the politician who got it to them, or the party in general, or they'll pay for speeches by the politicians.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big deal. And like you said, a lot of that was going right back into the abortion industry. Now, if you look at this, the abortion industry has said, Planned Parenthood said so many times, abortion is almost nothing of what we do. It's only 3% of what we do,
mm-hmm.
right? And then Donald Trump is saying, okay, they're allowing us to cut off abortion, Medicaid funding for places that do abortion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And now you have all these Planned Parenthoods closing all over the place, saying, oh, well, then we can't make it. Whoa, hold on. I thought it was only 3% of what you did.
Oh, yeah.
So it puts the lie to it right away.
Yeah.
Right? And if it were only 3% and they were talking about billions of dollars, they'd be willing to say, okay, we'll put that on pause for a little while, but they can't because they know that is what they do. That is all they do.
All they do.
I mean, you remember those great Lila Rose videos from years ago. She proved that.
Yeah.
And she's Right to Life. Who's she affiliated with now?
What is it? Live Action.
Live Action. Yeah. Okay. I knew that it was Life or Life in there somewhere, but no, she does great work. And it's just shedding light to this, and quite frankly, we're talking about all sorts of stuff that is lived in the dark. And it can only survive in the dark because I think if it was exposed to the light, it's got to quickly crumble. I mean, I think that it's able to survive because most people don't realize, most people don't know, and I think they'd be appalled, shocked.
Well, it's funny you say, oh, you're 100%, and it is funny, the pro-lifers and the Catholics and the Christians, we're accused of being anti-science, right? Now we're the ones saying, hey, let's put an ultrasound machine into every crisis pregnancy center. So we're the ones shedding light on what is actually in the womb.
With science, yes.
a unique life.
Yeah.
Right? And they're the ones trying to pull the plug on that. They're the one, no, we don't need to look in there. No, we can just keep saying it's a clump of cells. They're the ones rejecting the science.
Yes.
But, I mean, it couldn't be clearer what's happening. They're talking about a choice, but they're not talking about informed choice. They don't actually want anyone to know what's going on in a woman's womb. And it is a miracle. It is a miracle from God every time a child is conceived. And that is what they don't want anyone to know.
Yeah, there's only one choice in their minds.
Exactly. And that's exactly right. And it is a tragedy. And, you look at their advertising campaigns. It's shout your abortion, be proud of your abortion,
mm-hmm.
right? And do Christians shout their faith? Not a lot. I got to be honest,
and
not a lot.
Yep.
And we have to start. We have to restart, I should say, and not be afraid of the backlash from the culture. And but we're out there. We're trying our best, and and sometimes there are going to be pushback from it. But I play for an audience of one, and
mm-hmm.
that's all I care about.
Amen.
Well, I never really understood.
And by that, I don't mean my wife, even though she's a close second. It's like she's right there. She's right under it.
Yep.
Occasionally, right. It's always escaped reality to me. Why in the world is the federal government funding Planned Parenthood. I never quite understood that. How did that ever begin? Obviously, somebody struck a deal somewhere along the way, and then once you get something started, boy, you can't get rid of it, can you? But it looks like we have we have some funding that's going away. That's great.
Yeah, it is. That is great. I used to think that the other party, that the party for the politicians that are for death, essentially that an outgrowth of them was Planned Parenthood. But now I really do see that the power on the left is Planned Parenthood, and the politicians are an outgrowth of that. And they're there because of their willingness. Now I don't know. We've all been doing this a while. Do you remember Obamacare?
Oh yeah.
They had all the votes they needed for Obamacare to pass, but there was a one thing holding it up, and that was funding for abortion was on it. Do you remember? There was that congressman who was holding it up. He was a Democrat, and they could have had Obamacare pass months before, but instead they fought and made promises and threats behind the scene. Because think about that. They said how important it was to get health care to everyone, but they were willing to wait and not get health care for everyone if it meant that they couldn't get funding for abortion.
Yeah.
So what was really the most important thing there? The most important thing was the abortion funding. It was the contraceptive mandate. Those were the actually important things to them.
It was an agenda.
And,
yeah, clearly
it
an
always
agenda.
was.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought this up because you keep using the word healthcare. That's often what we consider healthcare. Abortion is healthcare. I don't know how, but that's what they claim. When you threaten to put an end to abortion, you're threatening women's health. And I have to kind of scratch my head. It's like, how do you even try to drive home that kind of argument unless you're dealing with population? It isn't really quite clear about what abortion really is.
And it always comes down to, in the end, it's a spiritual battle.
Yeah.
It truly is. That's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with light and dark. The moment you eradicate Jesus from the public field of discussion and in education, Jesus is truth. So once you eradicate Jesus from the public sphere, you are essentially eradicating truth from the public sphere. And everything is a spiritual battle. And that was one of the realizations that came upon me, and I decided politics is not
your thing.
I'll tell you this. I was having a ball in politics. I really was. I had a congressman, a guy running for Congress, and I got him. We had no money at all, but so in a desperate attempt just to get noticed, I had him ride an elephant across the border with a mariachi band to show how porous our border was. Right, and we had so much fun, and that was a big deal for a little while. But then, so we lost, of course.
But you got some great press.
right. And we did, and we didn't get caught. The elephant and the mariachi band all got across the border all fine.
That's great.
And but then afterwards, I really started realizing that politics is not just politics, because I started getting calls. Now, I was working, for candidates I believed in, but then there were candidates who believed in antithetical things to me, and they'd call me and say, "Hey, I like what you're doing. You want to come work for me?" And I said, "Oh no, I can't. I'm pro-life. I'm a Catholic." And they said, "Oh no, you don't think that stuff means anything down here in D.C. Like, people switch sides all the time. Like, that's just part of the game." And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And these are people who you'd know too. Like these are people who've gone on to much bigger and better or bigger or worse things, I should say.
Yeah.
But
they're saying the quiet
but
part
they meant
out loud.
it. They were like, they truly meant it. That it's all just a game to them, and that's a scary thing, because in the end, it is a spiritual battle. And if there's going to be a spiritual battle, I have to make sure, for me and my family, that I'm on the right side of it.
Amen, brother.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because it's too easy to sign away your soul. If you've got that much ambition that you got to achieve certain, especially political power, that you're willing to just go anywhere. Kind of scary.
I think it kind of speaks for some of the politicians, well-known politicians that we know that are supposedly faithful, practicing Catholics, and that doesn't compute. They can't purport. I mean, they can say that they're faithful Catholics or they're practicing Catholics, but they can't do what they do and live their faith. It's just that doesn't work.
And how many times did we elect people who we thought were going to go our way, but Planned Parenthood kept getting funding.
Sure.
And there was no movement at all towards it. We were just being duped. We were being played for so long, and it's just awful when you think about it, how long we were played. But getting back to the politics thing, if you don't have God at the heart of what you're doing, like I know the Beatles say, all you need is love. Well, that's a bunch of hooey. All you need is love. Love unguided by God, by truth. It'll do some bad things. Any detective will tell you that. And anytime they find someone, getting beat up or killed, okay, who are the loved ones? Let's start questioning them. Love unguided by God. Anytime in your life you love something and you try to fill that hole, that God-shaped hole in you with that, you are going to be in big trouble.
Oh yeah,
because it's not going to fill that hole. You think you're building something beautiful, and you're building a mausoleum, is what you're doing. And it's a scary thought. I always use this example: the guy who turned in Anne Frank and the people in the attic. It turns out that, or a lot of people believe now, that this isn't a guy who who loved the Nazis or hated Jews. That it was, in fact, a guy hiding from the Jews. He did it to protect his own family because he loved his family. Yeah. Right? So Amen. Love can be twisted if it's not guided by God.
Amen. Well put. There's our takeaway right there. We don't even need to finish the show. You said it all. Wow. Matthew Archbold, our guest on Faith with Reasons, author, blogger, columnist, and Catholic father of 5, and all-around nice guy. We're going to take a little break, and we will be right back.
Thinking about separation or divorce? Retrovi is a Christian peer ministry designed to help troubled couples regain the health of their marriage. It helps spouses reawaken the love, trust, and commitment that originally brought them together. Retrovi has helped tens of thousands of couples around the world. To learn more about Retrovi or to register for a weekend near you, call 1-800-470-2230 or visit us on the web at www.helpourmarriage.com.
The Catholic Church teaches that Jesus Christ is literally and wholly present, body and blood, soul and divinity, under the appearances of bread and wine. St. John the Apostle records the Bread of Life discourse in John chapter 6, in which Jesus states that his flesh is true food and his blood true drink. Who better to understand John's writings and subsequent teachings than a disciple and student of John, St. Ignatius of Antioch? In his letter to the Smyrnians in 110 A.D., Ignatius writes about those who hold heterodox opinions, stating, "They abstain from the Eucharist and from prayer because they do not confess that the Eucharist is the flesh of our Savior Jesus Christ, flesh which suffered for our sins and which the Father, in his goodness, raised up again." The Catholic Church absolutely follows St. John and St. Ignatius in taking Jesus at his word. Examining the truths of the Catholic faith, this is faithforensics.org.
Your St. Vincent de Paul Toledo thrift store has moved. Our new location is 5311 Airport Highway in the Airport Square Shopping Center, right next to Pet Supplies Plus at Airport and Reynolds. Come check out our new store. Open from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Saturday, accepting donations from 10 to 4. Come see the new location of the St. Vincent de Paul Toledo Thrift Store, Airport Highway at Reynolds Road.
Now, back to Faith with Reasons here on Annunciation Radio.
Hey, welcome back here. Shane Stample with Ron Finn, and we are blessed to have with us via telephone Matthew Archbold, author, blogger, columnist, Catholic father of 5, award-winning journalist who is heard every Thursday here on Annunciation Radio's Morning Offering program, author of best-selling pro-life novel American Antigone and nonfiction Faith Under Fire, dramatic stories of Christian courage. He's also the creator of the web resource Creative Minority Report, spotlighting current topics and news stories without losing his sense of humor. And Ron added at the end of the last half hour, all-around nice guy. And I kind of like that. That's a great title, man.
Yeah, I'll take that with me when I bring up my American Antigone to St. Peter. I'll be like, and Ron said all-around nice guy.
All-around nice guy.
Yeah, there could be some particulars that were a little edgy and a little pointy, but all around.
Well,
nice
yeah,
guy,
that's right. For the most part, on balance. But you got enough to get an embossed business card. Okay,
Hey,
I put it right on there.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
This compliment is getting worse and worse.
So I was taking a look at during our little commercial break here of some of the stuff you've written about here recently. Been a while since I've been on the blog. I check in from now and then, and New York Times redefining death. I think they're looking for more business in the organ donor business, and I think it is a business now. We've gotten to that point now where we're removing organs from live people for the sake of business. I do believe that's.
I know, for years that was the rumor about China. Remember that?
Oh yeah,
right. Yeah.
It's probably that China was doing this, and the whole world was aghast at that. And just oh my gosh, that's awful.
How could they do that?
And right, exactly. And and now the New York Times is publishing this. They want to redefine death. And it's just, and isn't that the perfect thing to do? The perfect, because they've already redefined life.
Yeah.
They've already redefined what it is to be human. They've already redefined marriage. They've already redefined male and female, and to the point where nothing means anything. And we're like back at the foot of the rubble at the Tower of Babel, where all of us are speaking and no one can understand a word anyone says because we all have different definitions.
Mm-hmm.
This is a terrible, terrible place to be. When we can't, as a culture, if we can't decide on the most important words, what is life, what is death, what is human, what is male, what is female, what hope do we have? Because I don't see a way forward as long as we can't agree on that.
No, and society just can't. It's going to cease to exist. I mean, we're going to destroy ourselves pretty quick. And this has all been tried over and over and over again. Just look at history, and we seem to we either ignore history, or we've rewritten it, or just simply got rid of those books because it's a bad way to go.
But the thing is, we say that, and to us, it seems like we are on railroad tracks where there's no exit ramp. It's just straight, and there's no way to avoid it. We're going straight off the cliff. But the truth is, we're always one miracle away from changing everything. And then we're always one saint away from doing something extraordinary, from changing everything. That's how close we are. We are always on the precipice of a miraculous event that saves us all and makes us all say, yes, of course there's a God. Of course he loves us. We knew this all along. Didn't we all know that all along? In fact, I'm waiting for the day when the newly converted, after some kind of miracle, are going to turn around and blame us for not evangelizing them well enough, because they're going to be, believers, and then they're going to come to, why didn't you just tell me that Christ was the Lord?
Yeah, right. And that is a kind of a tried and true tactic, isn't it? They have to redefine everything, like you said. It doesn't. If it's so abhorrent, well, let's just redefine it. Who can be against this? If you just put it in a different frame. We should be smart enough to figure this stuff out, but unfortunately, there's a lot of lemmings out there that are given to just going along with the tide, and that's what's scary.
It is, because once you get these people, they come out in their surgical gowns or their scrubs, and and they say, well, this is a very technical thing. You riffraff wouldn't understand, but we're redefining death to include a vegetative state, and people are like, all right, well, science says, the guys in scrubs say, and they accept it. And how many times have we heard? I'm remembering a story. I think it was in England. I think it was in England that there was a young kid, and he was sick, and the parents wanted to remove the child from the hospital and go try to find anything to try to make the kid, their son, better, and the hospital essentially said, no, you weren't allowed to move him, that he had to die there. Do you remember the Vatican then said they would let him come there? Do you remember that?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yep.
And this was a big deal, and it happened, and it all steamrolled, and no one did anything. And I often wonder to myself, is that a moment? Is that could have been a clarifying moment? And we're going to get more of these. But a moment where, just say, 6 priests walk into the hospital, lift this kid up, walk him downstairs into an ambulance, and somehow get him to the Vatican. An act of civil disobedience like that could go a long way towards clarifying in everyone's mind, that the Catholic Church is for life. It is against death, mandated by the state. It's against all this darkness that we're, curling over into, like it's a dark blanket. I think we are just always just one, unreasonable act of holiness away from changing things around. And I hope that, someone of courage is going to be in the right spot at the right time when we need him or her most to do it.
I'm counting on that. I really am, because I do believe it will happen. We see it happen time and time again. That was a great example you gave. If we just kind of amplify those real life stories when they do come up, and it really gives people, they're going to look at that and maybe rethink their position, or at least think deeper, right? It's not just something that you have to pass by. You really need to figure out ways to stand against something so evil that is plain as the nose on your face, so to speak.
Yeah, and you really wish, and that could wake people up and make them, like you said, reconsider everything. And I do think there is something in all of us that knows somewhere down deep that there's a God. And you can say, hey, maybe you want to leave him a really bad review, or maybe you think he's doing a rotten job, but that there is a God. And, and maybe you're mad at him for something that happened, right? But you have to accept the fact and not act out. You have to accept the fact that there is a God and work your way through that. And once you acknowledge God, we can start working our way together towards understanding that God is love and God is justice. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we don't live in a fallen world, because we do. We live in a fallen world, and, we can have that discussion. But when you just say there is no God, the discussion's over. We can't, because it's such an unreasonable claim that how do we move forward from that?
Yeah. And I kind of looking at other stories you hear, and I think one way to prove a God is to have a group to come out and open up a satanic abortion clinic, because obviously if there's a Satan, there must be a God, and and we've been talking about this. Twisting things, and we mentioned the last hour. You're calling abortion health care, and you're reversing the obvious and distorting the truth. But here you're dealing with this what we all should know is truly a satanic practice of killing the most vulnerable, most innocent human beings. But you've got there's a satanic temple that sponsored this, or it's opened this abortion clinic. I mean, what better truth right there is it's Satan himself.
Yeah, one of the things that I find rather easy is when I'm trying to pick a side on a political issue. And, something I can ask, like, hey, where's Satan on this issue? And they tell me, he's marching for abortion. I'll be like, okay, then I think I know where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
I think I'm supposed to be on the other side of this. To me, that should be a pretty clarifying thing when, the Satanic Temple is getting behind abortion. They're getting behind gender fluidity. They're getting behind eugenics and, killing old people. And, okay, got it. Check. Got it. I got my marching orders. I know what I'm supposed to do because, I definitely want to be on the opposite side of that guy.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple litmus test there, isn't it? I like you can apply that to so many things too.
So this is so in this case, this is they're actually performing satanic abortion rituals. So there's a ritual that goes along with killing a baby. Yeah, that's something.
What is it always? It's always that. And you go back to the Aztecs, to Baal worshippers. It always comes down to sacrificing innocence.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It always comes down to that. And we can give any reason we want. We're doing it so that we get good crops next year. We're doing it so that this woman can continue working in a cubicle, for the rest of her life, so she can, be empowered. You can come up with any reason, but the fact is there is a dark force, and it is delighting that innocence is being drowned and destroyed, and that's what we're facing right now. And this is something ancient. This is not, this is not a new evil. It comes in new packaging. It has a corporation now tied to it, and a lot of politicians. But it's the same old thing. It goes all the way back to that instinct to sacrifice innocence, sacrifice children, and whereas Jesus said, "Let the children come unto me," and Jesus stood up as the sacrifice for our sins, so that no sacrifices have to happen. But it really does show you that we are facing down, principalities, and this is not just politics. I know it keeps getting back to that. Isn't that funny how it just keeps going back to that?
Yeah.
It's not politics. This is a spiritual battle that we're facing, and it is ancient, and it is cunning and awful and vile. And we have to really stick to our faith in order to defeat it. Defeat it even in our own selves, and keep praying that rosary every day. That's what Mary told us to do.
Yeah.
I don't think Mary was speaking hyperbolically. I don't think she was kidding around.
Right.
When at Fatima, she said, pray the rosary every day. I think she meant it. And I was okay, I can do that, and I'll admit it. Some days I do that speed rosary where I zoom through it a little bit. Some of those words maybe get a little mumbled, but I'm saying it, as well as I can every day. And maybe that's putting a dot of light into a dark world. But if we all do it together, out loud and often enough, we'll make a difference.
Amen. So true. And we can all do this. We've got the tools right here, and we just have to use them. and make sure that we carve out time for that as well. Because let's face it, priorities are priorities, and we've got to get them in the right order. Matthew Archbold, our guest on Faith with Reasons today. CreativeMinorityReport.com is always a great site to check out. But you can also check out his columns. I know you're writing for a variety of sources, National Catholic Register and Catholic Digest. You used to write for that. You're still contributing a lot of articles in a lot of different places. So, because you always have just a great way of putting things and putting things in perspective as well. So, again, I'm glad that you're with us today because there's always so much to cover. And it's hard to cover it all. It really is. And these are great conversation starters to have just with people around you, too, because you kind of get fortified when you have conversations like this, which is nice. Now, have you seen any good movies lately, Matt?
Have I seen any good movies? Well, my son dragged me to Superman, and it was good. It was good. I wouldn't rave about it. I'm trying to think. Have I seen anything else that was good? I did see a movie by Angel Studios. It was weird because it was by Angel Studios, but it wasn't particularly Christian at all.
Really?
It was family friendly, but it wasn't Christian. There was nothing Christian about it. It was called Sketch, and it was about a little girl who draws things, and they all come to life, and they start harassing a town. It's a wonderful little movie. It's like one of those old Disney movies, that they used to make in the 60s. Mm-hmm. It was just family friendly, and
when Disney was a different company.
No, I know. I hesitated to even say it. As soon as I said it, I pictured you two curdling your mouth.
Way back when.
When they had Herbie the Love Bug and those movies and Flubber. And it felt like one of those movies, and I think that's so I saw that, and that was actually quite a wonderful little movie. But I don't understand why Angel did it. But speaking of movies, are you guys excited for Mel Gibson to be working on the sequel to The Passion?
Yep,
very much so. It's been too long, and I know this is a long time in the making, but finally they're going to release this in 2 parts, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm super excited for that one. I really am. I think that can have he's a very, very gifted filmmaker, and he could have a great impact on the culture. He had think about that movie. I watch it every Good Friday. My family sits down and we watch it, and it's such a moving experience. So many amazing moments in it that really put you in that moment when Jesus was crucified. And man, I can't wait to see what he's going to do with this, especially when I hear that he's going to really take on all of salvation theology with it. And so it's not just going to be an account of Acts, sending out the apostles in their sandals, which would be awesome, obviously. But I kind of love the fact that he's going a little deeper and a little, bigger with it. And in fact, what is the sacrifice? Why did he have to sacrifice himself for us? And what that did exactly for us. I'm super excited for it. And look, movies are very popular, and people are always interested. So we have to be part of the culture, and if he can put Christ back in the culture in a meaningful way, that's a really good sign.
Mm-hmm. Well, I could tell he was really pumped in putting this together. I think I saw him on Rogan, and he talked about putting this. And of course, Rogan was fascinated. And I'm hoping that guy's going to convert at some point, because he seems to be being led in that direction. He brings some really fascinating people on there, and a lot of times it ends up back into this talk of religion. But Mel was talking about this, and I think he interviewed him the day his house burned down in the wildfires. I think when he was on the interview or during the interview, he had family members that were going through the house trying to save things before the flames overtook the structure. But anyhow, he was emphasizing that whole idea where he says, I'm just not going to tell the story. He says, I think I need to tell the whole story, and he gets into like what you're explaining, the whole theological perspective, because he really felt whether he's called to it. Or it was even something bigger in his own faith life, but he just really felt the need to tell it all because it needs to be done.
One of the fascinating things, and I did watch that interview, was how open Joe Rogan seemed to that. Now,
yes,
Joe Rogan is a huge voice for a lot of people, and him coming closer and closer, it seems, to accepting Christ is, I think, a very big deal. But over the past few years, we've had a lot of Candace Owens became Catholic. Tucker Carlson, really acknowledged his Christianity a lot more. He really turned into it. Russell Brand became a very, very open Christian. A number of very, very big name people, and to the fact that Vanity Fair actually opened up put out an article questioning, like, why are all these people becoming Catholics and Orthodox all of a sudden? Is this something we should worry about? And anytime Vanity Fair is worried about something, that's another one. I check, is Vanity Fair on this side of the issue or?
That's right. It's a Satan litmus test, right?
Right.
That's very true.
Yeah.
It's like Satan, Hitler, Vanity Fair. Those are my three benchmarks.
Or Teen Vogue, that one
too. Exactly. But there are a lot of as C.S. Lewis wrote, Aslan is on the move, and it is clear that this is a moment we're looking at where people's hearts are being moved to Christ. And, look at how many people online are now just discussing their faith openly now, whereas 10 years ago, that just wasn't the case. And you guys were around, 15 years ago, let's be honest, Christian movies were pretty awful,
If you can find them at all.
If you could find them at all, right? And now they're pretty easy to find, and some of them are really quite good. So we really are in a lot better position than we were, 10, 15 years ago. But let's use that momentum. Let's keep going, and let's unashamedly, unreservedly preach the light of Christ.
Yeah.
Because he is the truth, and he is the way. That's what we have to follow, because without him there is no truth. Everything becomes subjective. When we were talking about these terms before, what is life, what is death, what is a human, what is a boy, what is a girl, the first thing you remove, the only Jenga piece you have to remove is Jesus, and the tower will fall down, because Jesus is the truth. And once you remove Jesus, there is no objective truth. So then anything can mean anything at that point. And if we're being honest, the secularists did a very, very solid job of removing Christ from the public sphere. And I thank God, for shows like this where you guys are putting Jesus back out there. You're talking openly about your faith. That's what I try to do, and I know there's a lot of people out there who speak openly about their faith, even to their family members. But let's all try to do a little bit more. And I can remember going to a funeral, and there was a man. This is many years ago. A man, he was grieving. I think it was his mother, and he just said, she's gone, and that's it. And I kind of moved along the procession line, and I regretted it so much. And I was like, I had the opportunity to tell him, no, that's not it. Are you kidding? That's not it. There's so much more after this. And I missed my opportunity, and I always kicked myself for that. I'm so upset with myself because he took me by surprise, and I didn't, and I just didn't react right, but I won't do that again.
Yeah,
I will not. I am at the ready, and I am always openly preaching the truth.
Yeah, those moments always take us by surprise, but the idea that you're reflecting upon it now prepares you for that next opportunity. It's almost like you instill in yourself this extra courage or this more of an attentive attitude when presented to these by these things when they come about in the future, and it becomes easier. Even if you mess it again, you're just one step closer to becoming better equipped to handle it when it comes around. So
the funny thing is, I don't even remember this guy's name, but for 10 years, because I missed my opportunity, anytime I do all my prayers after Mass, I always include that guy, and I picture him in my head.
Yes, yeah.
So for 10 years,
it's that guy.
For 10 years, I've been praying for that guy.
That guy.
So I don't know where he is now, but maybe, for all I know, the power of my prayer, he's probably a saint by now, because my prayers are pretty super powered. Let's be honest, right? Come on.
Well, you know what? You're going to run. You'll run into him. You'll pass him on the street. And you look at him and go, "Hey, you're that guy."
Right.
You don't understand. I've renamed you.
You're that guy.
You're that guy. Yeah, that guy. Don't you remember me? Yeah.
Well, and this is where that key, to like a nightly examine comes when you review your day in the
Great
past
point.
and you catch those spots.
Yeah.
Then, like you said, Shane, you remember that going forward, and you start to look for opportunities. And Matt, I mean, you did that, and it's changed everything. And we do that from time to time, and then we slip back again. So we got to keep on keeping on. Absolutely,
I'm pretty good at slipping.
Yeah, it's just comes naturally. Yeah.
You ever do that thing where you're kind of examining? You just mean to examine like your last few days, and then all of a sudden you remember, unbidden, something awful you did in like the 11th grade, and you're like, "Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
I don't think I even confessed that." Holy moly!
It's kind of taking care of those cobwebs, just cleaning house.
So there are dangers.
I gotta
That's
get
true.
the confession right away.
That's so true. Well, as usual, a very enlightening and entertaining conversation with Matt Archbold. And, of course, I encourage people to check out the pro-life novel American Antigone. And, of course, go back even further with Faith Under Fire, Dramatic Stories of Christian Courage. Both of them excellent reads. And you got to have a copy of both of those. And maybe even have like an electronic copy plus a hard copy. So, and you can get those at your favorite Catholic bookstore, or maybe call up Matt and ask him for one. Matt, thank you so much. We'll talk to you tomorrow morning.
God bless.